and welcome to another episode of History Tea. So happy to have you guys tune in again. This week's episode is actually going to be super interesting. A lot of people probably have not heard of it, but we're just going to dive straight into it, and I hope you guys enjoy. But first, before I get into the story, I just want to say thank you to everybody who watched the last video. I have some major updates coming soon. The videos are going to get better, the content's going to get better, and my personality is only going to get better. But anyway, guys, I'm just so happy that you guys are watching and tuning in. But anyway, let's get started. Y'all ready? So my beautiful kings and queens and whatever you want to call yourselves, I'm going to call you guys actually my little historians. My little historians. Today's story is actually quite interesting. Now, if you guys know me, you know that when I get into history, I dive. I look for the really interesting facts. And actually, today's story is one of the most interesting history moments that I learned about. Now, I know you guys probably don't want to discuss this, or people like to avoid the topic, but today's topic is about slavery. Yeah, I said slavery. I know you guys probably are like, oh no, let's not talk about it. Let's beat around the bush like we have for like 300 to 400 years, but it's okay. We're gonna talk about it today and you guys are gonna like it, okay? So let's get into it. Today's episode is actually gonna be about the relationship between Thomas Jefferson and Sally Hemings. Now, I'm sure you guys know who Thomas Jefferson is, but I'm sure you have no clue who Sally Hemings is, and we're actually going to get into that. Now, Thomas Jefferson is very well known in the United States. He's one of our founding fathers. He was actually our third president, and I'm sure so many people out there think, oh, he was a saint. But come on now, how many of our presidents do you know that actually owned a ton of slaves? He was no different. When his father passed away, he actually received 5,000 acres of land from his father, as well as 42 slaves. And over the years, those 42 slaves turned into about 400 slaves. Of those 400 slaves, one of them was named Sally Hemings. Now, Sally Hemings was a biracial woman who was one of Thomas Jefferson's slaves. Now, she was actually probably more European or Caucasian than she was African American. Her mother was biracial, and then her father was Caucasian. So at this point, she was very much could have been white passing, I guess is what you could call it. White passing is actually the term that you say when you describe someone who has black blood, but they're so little that they can pass for white, or they're very light complected and you cannot tell. If you look into the history of the 20s, 30s, and 40s, 50s, there was a ton of black people who passed for white. They had a white parent or they had a white grandparent, and they were light enough to where people did not question their race, or if they did, they were able to lie about it and get through life, because it was easier to be white than it was to be black. I mean, hello, it's the same now. I mean, am I wrong? Am I wrong? But anyway, back to where I was saying. So Sally Hemings, she was biracial. She lived on the plantation. She was a slave. She was a house servant. And Thomas Jefferson was her owner, her master. Sally was actually his wife, Martha's half-sister. So yes, Martha, his wife, who he was married to for many, many years, her father was another slave owner. And he had a child with Sally's mother, who became Sally Hemings, as we know her today. And he also had a child with his wife, who was Martha Jefferson. She was married to Thomas Jefferson. So his wife and one of his slaves shared the same father. So the bottom line is that they had a relationship for many, many, many years. I do want to point out, however, I know that I mentioned earlier that Martha and Sally were sisters, Martha being his wife. Thomas Jefferson and Sally Hemings did not start having any type of relationship until a few years after Martha had already passed away. It has been noted that Sally looked a lot like Martha. Keep in mind, even though one was mixed race and one wasn't, they did share the same father. They had apparently very similar characteristics, and it was just kind of known that they were related. So some may say, okay, so maybe she reminded him of his wife who passed away, and that just gives him a little bit of reminder of his wife. Or some of us could just say he was being weird. It's up to you, right? But I do just want to point that out.
Do you like the house?
Yes.
I designed it myself.
Oh, it's beautiful, sir.
Sir? What, sir? No, please call me TJ.
Now let's get into when they actually met. So Sally was actually a servant in Paris for him. So when he was spending time in Paris or living in Paris for a brief moment, she was his servant. But before she was enslaved in Monticello, or on the Monticello land, she was his servant in Paris, and that is when things actually began to like heat up for them. Now, it actually is known, or it has been said, that she basically told Jefferson, like, hey, take me to Monticello. In exchange, you'll gain extraordinary privileges. So she said, hey, yeah, take me there and I'll be a slave for extraordinary privileges. Do with that what you want, but know that that's apparently what she said. And in exchange, she would want freedom for herself and for her unborn children, because at that time they didn't have any children.
So what was the relationship between Thomas Jefferson and Sally Hemings? She was only 14 years old, and she was his slave. Well, that says a lot, I think, but you have your own opinions. But some have claimed that they were in love. Tandy Newton, who also played Beloved, portrayed Sally Hemings in a movie called Jefferson in Paris. It'd be a nice time to rent Jefferson in Paris, which suggested an emotional relationship. But really, who knows? Take a look.
And you put it on your head, and you see how many steps you can do without spilling the water. Going to the body deep, going to the body deep, going to the body deep, going to the Let me show you how to do buck dancing. You hold hands, you jumps up and down.
You still scared of me, Sally?
I ain't scared of you, Massa.
And so she ended up going with him back to the U.S., and those extraordinary privileges began, okay? Did end up having 6 children.
Here's a quick lesson. Thomas Jefferson and his wife, Martha, had 6 children. Follow me now. Now, after Martha died, at some point, Thomas Jefferson began a sexual relationship with a young slave named Sally Hemings. Now, Sally had 7 children herself. All of them were rumored to have been fathered by Thomas Jefferson. And we have just learned that there is proof that at least one of them, a son named Eston, was indeed, through DNA testing, has been proven that he was the son of Thomas Jefferson.
He's not gonna keep his homie lover friend like out in the open where all the Caucasian people can, you know, be seeing him, you know, doing his little sneaky link thing. So basically, people had no clue, like, where the heck does this woman live? He has a slave, we know her name, we know what she looks like, but we don't see her, we see everybody else. And it wasn't until about 200 years later that we even knew what the heck, or we knew where the heck the sneaky link location was. Yes, I call it a sneaky link. Sneaky link. Anyways, it wasn't until 200 years later that we knew where it was. So basically in 2017, they were remodeling Monticello because, you know, you have to do that. It's an older building. You have to keep it refurbished and up to date. And while they were doing those renovations, they were doing some construction in the bathroom area, and they knocked down a wall. And on that other side of the wall, they found a room. Now, at first, they did not know what the room was. It was 15 by 13 feet. So it was a fairly small space, but bigger than what maybe a slave cabin would have been for a whole family of slaves. So it was a decent sized room, and it had a fireplace, no windows. After further research, they realized, oh, yeah, this is where he was keeping his woman. He was keeping his woman, his lady friend, his lover, his heart, his soul, his slave underneath his home. So there's literally, this is the mansion, all right, right here, and underneath is Sally's room with no windows. Imagine spending a whole bunch of time in a room with no windows. But she probably would have preferred that over having to sleep outside in, you know, a very small cabin with maybe like 6 other people in there. There wasn't a lot of space. And of course there's no windows because you can't get your sneaky link on if people are like looking through the window. So he had her in a very isolated space, and that is where she spent her life. She spent her life underneath this man's house in solitude with her children, who later on went to pass his way. But long story short, he had her underneath the house. His room was actually very close by. So he didn't have to do a lot of traveling from one side of the mansion to the other to have access to her. There wasn't any window, so they would have a hard time knowing exactly what was going on.
I grew up at a time when you didn't hear the word slave here. You could go on 10 tours over 10 different years and never heard the word slave. And now the tours you take here are complete tours. I feel good that America now gets the full story. I mean, these 2 rooms used to be a bathroom, and they uncovered that Sally and her brother lived here. And if you take the tour, they go through Jefferson's bedroom. It says John Hemmings built that archway there. That was never talked about. You were never taught when you were a kid, and you weren't, and I wasn't, that slaves built Monticello, the Capitol, the White House. This country would not exist without slaves. And Sally Hemings was one of the founding mothers of this country. I like to think about Thomas Jefferson getting up on the day that he wrote the Declaration of Independence back in 1776. Who made his breakfast? Who came in and shook his shoulder and said, Mr. Jefferson, it's time to get up and write the Declaration of Independence? Slaves did.
I'm proud of my cousin for saying it.
You would think that with them having the relationship that people thought that they had, that he would free her, but no. He actually only ended up freeing their children, and 3 of the children passed for white, and 1 of them just, you know, went along with me. And my mom is black, so I'm black. The other 3 did not. Claim that they went on to live a lot easier lives. But basically, he did not free her, and she remained enslaved while her children went off and lived their life without their mother's name attached to them, because they didn't want to have a difficult life. They didn't want to have a hard life. I mean, who would want to? But of course, in return, that means that you can't go back to your roots. You know, visiting your mom, she can't be your mom because that would make you part black, and you're supposed to be passing as white. So only 1 of her children claimed her as their mother. I think years down the line, it was found out, of course, like, oh wow, our great grandmother was part black, and, you know, was a slave, and was I don't want to say mistress because his wife had passed away, but was the lover of Thomas Jefferson for many years. And so he freed his children. He did not free her, and she actually did not end up getting freed until after he passed away. And Thomas Jefferson's daughter, Martha, yes, her name is Martha, the same name as her mother, who was named Martha. Martha Jefferson, his daughter, actually ended up freeing Sally. And that is how she gained her freedom. So all of these years, all of the dedication, all of the time, patience, effort, children, you know, that went into it was not enough for him to free her. And who knows, maybe there's more to the story. There's some things we'll never know about it. But the long story short, the T, is that one of our presidents, our 3rd president, he's on our money. Monticello is on the frickin', I think on the nickel. This man had a whole family of black children. He had a slave that he had children with. And guys, this is not surprising. For some people it is because he was a president, but you would be shocked about how normal this is. And if you just need some more information, guys, there's so many documentaries, movies, things of that nature that just kind of explain that kind of relationship that happened back then between a slave master and a a slave master and his slave. Maybe theirs was like consensual to a certain degree. I'm not gonna say it was completely consensual because she's a slave, but there was also a lot more drastic situations where the slave wasn't put away underneath the house and had a good space and an oven to cook and a room that's that's dry and safe and away from anything that's dangerous. If you guys watch 12 Years a Slave, you'll actually see the relationship between the master there and his slave, and that was a very toxic, abusive relationship. She didn't want him in that manner. She was taken advantage of, raped, and she was abused by his wife because she was jealous that her husband was basically giving his attention and his love to a slave. But so just realize the severity of those kind of relationships and how it has molded African Americans into who we are today. Most of us do have some kind of Caucasian blood in us, and that's not necessarily something that we're proud of, but it's a part of our history. So if you guys are interested in learning more, definitely watch some movies, watch 12 Years a Slave, watch some documentaries on YouTube, on Netflix, or wherever you can find a good documentary on those kind of things. Also, there's a movie called Queen. It's about a biracial daughter of a slave owner who actually took really good care of her, and she tried to pass for white. It's called Queen. You should watch it. It's like the sequel to, I believe, Roots. If you've seen Roots, then it's about the person who made Roots. Roots is about his dad's side of the family. Queen is about his mom's side of the family. So if you're interested in that, definitely take a look at it. It's really interesting. You'll learn a lot. And the actress who actually plays the white passing slave is Holly Berry. So you guys should definitely take a look at that. But long story short, I hope that you guys got some good information, some good tea. I know it was scandalous. I know a lot of y'all probably had no clue. Definitely watch the Oprah interview. I'm gonna make sure to put that link there. And there's probably gonna be some links, or if you've already watched, you saw the links that are inserted in this video. But long story short, guys, I hope that you guys really, really liked this. I hope it was exciting. I hope it was informative. Of course, you want to learn about these things, and I know a lot of people have heard about this, but I know there's a ton of people who probably have no clue. So definitely stay tuned for my next video. I hope that you guys learned a lot. If you have questions, please just drop them in the comments. Any sound issues, if you just have any kind of constructive criticism, you're not gonna hurt my feelings, go ahead and just let me know, all right? And I also want to let you guys know that slowly but surely I am getting new equipment. I finally got a mic. You can probably see it a little bit in this frame, but yeah, I got a mic, guys. I'm just working on getting some more stuff in, and I'm actually gonna have some really good editing coming soon. So I just really am excited. I really believe in this, and I just want to say thank you to everybody who's supporting me. You guys are amazing. So like, subscribe, share, please. Just like watch as many times. I'm trying to get my views up. I'm trying to get more subscribers. Tell your friends. Tell people, guys, this is interesting stuff and you're gonna learn something. And it's tea. It's tea. It's hot, okay? So anyway, guys, like I said, like, share, subscribe. Thanks for watching. Bye.